Thanks, Mike. Hi, everybody. I'm James, and I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the changes that we've made to the Workbench over the last year. Now, Workbench changes tend to come in three different categories. The first one is what I like to call keeping up with the Joneses. It's the things that need to be done to Workbench to cover all of the new features in DivePort and DiveLine and Spectre especially. The next set is what are called quality of life. These are the little changes that can have a big impact on your workflow and how you use Workbench every day. After that, I'm going to switch over to some of the future changes and some of the major changes that we're working on, the big new features in Workbench. So with that, let's talk about some of the things that we've added. Now, last year at User Conference, we talked about user access tokens. These are a more secure way of authenticating with DiveLine when using things like the DivePort Web API. So the user access tokens can be edited within the server settings editor of Workbench, and they allow you to view all of the current tokens, create new ones, or revoke or even delete existing ones. The next major keeping up with the Joneses feature is the ODBC registry. Now, Mike talked about that one earlier. So really all I have to say is you'll find that within the within the server settings, it's got its very own tab. Can't miss it. All right. Next up, we have those quality of life changes. And honestly, rather than doing those in PowerPoint, which would be boring, I thought I'd do a quick demo. So let's come over here to Workbench. Now, the first one of these changes, if you're like me, you have at any given moment a billion tabs open and you can never find the tab that you want. We've made some changes to help with this in the past, but I got a couple to show you here. The first one is simple. It's this little pull down way up here that lists all of your open tabs, whether they fit on the screen or not. If you have so many they don't even fit vertically, we'll even give you a scroll bar for that. Another feature, and this is probably more useful, is most workflows often involve just going back and forth between two different files, maybe an integrator script and the build that comes after it or whatever. So to navigate quickly, we've added the ability to sort of jump backwards and forwards. You hold the Alt key and hit the left and right arrow keys. I can simply jump back and forth between the different files that I've been working on. This makes it very quick and easy to sort of move up and down that stack and see all of my changes. The next change is that we've added the history for a file. So if you've been using your version control workflow correctly, you'll notice that every time I have made a commit of this file, it's got a new line in here, so I can see all of the changes. Let's say I'm curious as to why my script is running a little slower than I think it should be. I can come back here, look at my history and say, aha, this James Kirtley guy, he added a Spectre cache refresh. That's probably why my script is running slower. So this part of the workflow really helps with all of that aspect of understanding what's really going on here. The next thing that I want to talk about is we've added syntax highlighting for several new file types. Now, syntax highlighting is what you're looking at right now. Different tags are different colors. I've got the ability to see which open and close parenthesis goes together. I can see, hey, did I forget to close this string? Whatever. The exact details of how syntax highlighting work change from file type to file type. But the new ones that we've added are HTML, XML, JSON, and SQL or SQL. Those all now have these highlighting so you can see easily what's going on in that file. Now, the next thing we've done is we've merged the find and replace dialogs. So if I come over here and I hit Control F, you get the find dialog like you're used to. And I can say, well, I'm looking at a HTML file. Link seems like a good thing to look for. And I can see all of the examples of that. I can go back and forth. But now let's say I want to do a replace. Now, before I would close my find dialog and open my replace dialog. That seems like a few extra steps. So now all I have to do is click on the replace tab. And you'll see it's the same controls, which means whatever I had in find before stays in there. So I can now say, all right, well, let's replace link with some nonsense word like Zelda. If I hit replace all, you'll see it's replaced all 67 occurrences. It was really easy for me to move from that find process to the replace. Now, of course, if you've ever edited an HTML file, you'll realize I just broke it, something fierce, and I really need to fix that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use another new feature, which is over here in the edit menu. I have revert file. Instead of trying to close the file and reopen it and tell Workbench, no, I don't want to make any changes. All I have to do is hit revert, say OK. And now all of the changes that I've made since the last time I saved are reverted. Very quick, very easy. Next up, we've got changes made to production. So let me go back to my production script. Now, the first one of these is in the advanced run dialog, which is here in the run menu. We've added run configurations. Run configurations are collections of nodes and parameter values that can be named and can be called in different situations. They're easy to select. In this case, I'm just going to go with small, so it'll happen quickly. And my script goes ahead and runs. The next thing that I want to show you is we've added a context menu to this results mode. So if I'm looking at a given node here and I want to say, well, why is this node yellow? I can right click on it. I could jump straight to it, or I could say, well, maybe I fixed it and hit test from this node. You'll see it skipped these two nodes. They're green and crosshatched, just started right here and moved through the rest of the script. The next thing I've done is I've added what's called the email node. If we go back to edit script, if I click on this, you can see an email node. We've always had the option to send emails at varying times during scripts. What this does is this is an explicit, I'm going to send an email here. Makes it easier to understand the flow. Perhaps I've created an attachment that I need to send out right before this, and so on. Email nodes use the regular email objects that are used in other places, so I can see. And one new feature that have been added to email objects is if I come over here and I look at my definition for this, we can see that I've added this checkbox here, body contains HTML. That means that bits of this email might include HTML tags. If your email client can handle it, it will treat this email, it will treat this line of this email as if it was an HTML link, and you could click on it and it will open, in this case, the Workbench help in your browser. Finally, one last feature that I've added is very simple. In the copy node, we have a new when file exists option called do nothing, which does pretty much what you'd expect. Sometimes you don't really need to copy the file over. Maybe you just need to have it, but it doesn't change very often. So what this feature does is it does nothing. If the file already exists, it'll save you a little time, run your script a little faster. Okay, so with that, those are all of the features that we've added to Workbench in the last year. Now, the next section that I want to talk about is we're going to talk about some of the major upcoming changes, not just in Workbench but to other DI products as well. So with that, let's switch back to PowerPoint. And let's talk about some of the futures. These are the next major version of the DI software that's coming out. Now, there are two things that I want to talk about in Workbench. The first of those is the Git or version control workflow and some of the ways that we're going to be augmenting that for the future. Now, the first one of these is changes that we've made to the Explorer. Now, I've got an image here. You can see what the Explorer is going to look like. And the real change here is if you have uncommitted changes to files, they are now in boldface. And you can see I've even got this little pencil to tell me that this file has changed, overlaying on the icon. This is a subtle reminder that I really should commit these changes once they're all complete. Secondly, we're going to make major changes to the way new projects are dealt with. And the reason for this is version control is really custom made to support making changes in development and then moving them forward through test and acceptance and finally onto production so that your users can actually see them. So one of the major changes that we're going to make in the future is the way we tie those projects together so that a change can just be with one push of a button sent over to the next stage in that process. And with that, the last change that we're going to talk about for Workbench, I'm not going to talk about at all. I'm going to send it over to my colleague Jan Willem, who's going to tell you about the new flow editor, which is part of some of the major Spectre changes for the next year. Thank you very much.